Our world is crying for justice. All sides of the political spectrum, the nightly news, virtually every podcast, justice, social justice, racial justice, diversity justice, gender justice, and on it goes. But one thing we hear little about is God's justice. In Scripture, we find a cluster of terms related to God's justice. In Deuteronomy 32:4, Moses writes, "He is the rock, his work is perfect, his ways are judgment, just, and right." Each word in that little verse gives us a glimpse of God's justice. The word perfect means complete. The word judgment refers to decision-making, and the word just carries the idea of, in fact, cutting it straight. Moses' point is simply that God can't be arbitrary. He exercises authority and power with perfect judgment. Calvin said it this way: "It is impossible for God, whose will is the law of justice, to in the least degree swerve from the right." George Swinnock added, "The law or rule of God's justice is within him. Yes, it's he himself. He is his own rule, and therefore it is impossible for him to recede or err from it." It can be helpful sometimes to put God's justice into categories so we can wrap our mind around it. First is legal justice, or retributive justice, which simply means that God distributes reward for good and punishment for evil. That is, judgments are personal and relational. Isaiah said, "The Lord is well pleased, for his righteousness' sake he will magnify the law and make it honorable." Second is what we would often call human justice, meaning that God will order his people in the right way, or that his divine justice sets the very foundation for human justice. Augustine said, "Liberties or freedoms are not what is useful to the stronger party, but that which flows from the foundation of God's justice." His point is that God's justice establishes the order in society under which every person has obligations to others, and God's justice engages human authority to defend or avenge those suffering injustice. Third is what we may call penal justice, specifically that God will punish the wicked with his judgments. God will bring on sinners appropriate consequences. William Ames called this God's avenging justice. Turretin said, "If the hatred of sin is necessary in God, justice is equally necessary because the hatred of sin is the will to punish that sin." Fourth, we may call evangelical justice or salvific justice. The idea that God glorifies his justice in salvation, a remarkable thought, that God inseparably linked judgment with redemption. That's what caused Isaiah to erupt, "The Lord has laid on him," meaning the suffering servant, "the iniquity of us all." Joel Beakey says, "God satisfied the demands of the justice once for all, so that those who belong to Christ find favor and not wrath." And fifth and finally is ultimate doxological justice, that all of God's justice aims to display his own glory. This makes sense, right? True justice demands our highest aim to be for the greatest good. And there's no greater good than the glory of God. Like Isaiah said, "The Lord has sworn an oath in justice, that to him will every knee bow and tongue confess." And right there lies the Christian hope. Though we live in a world of injustice, soon Christ will return, establishing all justice. If you're a Christian, you'll magnify and delight in that justice forever, because all things will finally be made right.